Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you with us today for more one webinar here at Birdie. So my name is Alex, and I'm the product director here at Birdie. Talk a little bit about Birdie. We are a feedback analytics platform for product teams. So our mission is to empower product people to let them make better decisions by leveraging customer feedback at scale. If you are interested in learning more about Birdie and how AI could be used to create better products inside your company, visit us in birdie.ai. But we're not here today to listen from me. I know that what we really want to hear is from Henrique. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Henrique Ceribelli, current SVP of Product Management at Bill.com. So Henrique, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here, and the screen is all yours.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks everybody, everyone for joining today. And thanks for the opportunity, Birdie, to just share some of the amazing journey that has been the last 16 years at Bill. Let me share my screen for a quick second here. Let me just let's start with a quick intro. Early days, I was back in Brazil. I moved to São Paulo to study computer science. Then I did a master's degree in computer science as well. I worked full-time as an engineer in the largest bank in Brazil for 5 years before I decided to switch to the product management side. And so I joined at Berkeley MBA back in 2005. Did internship, and then I did my first job after business school. I had the option between eBay or a startup called Cashview that changed his name to Bill shortly after I joined. So I decided to take a chance. It was really fast-paced, the whole interview process. I really liked the people. So I joined Bill. We were only 20 friends and family using the product for free. I was employing 14. That was me back in the days. And a few years in the Bill, big milestone in my life is my daughter was born. And then, you know, as the startup life with a newborn, it was interesting to balance the two. But Bill, I learned a lot between kind of running a startup and helping grow and also being a father. That led to us after many years getting into the dream of every startup. We were able to get to an IPO, and not only did IPO, but we had a successful post-IPO. We grew 10x after the IPO. And as the title of this presentation is the from a house to the IPO. So this is the house. It was literally a house in Palo Alto, one of those houses that was converted to an office, but you know, the AC will work in one side and not work in the other side. But it was fun. My first day at the job, I actually put together the desk, the IKEA desk, and the chair, got a monitor, and so it was really kind of a different but fun experience. You know, whiteboarding with the engineering and talking to customers every day. So what I would like to share with you all today is that you know, it's kind of unusual for someone to stay in a company for that long. And for me, lesson learned was really each size, each phases of the company, it requires a different type of employees. And I think you can summarize by looking at the revenue and then talking about how some of the key milestones that a company reaches, what you need, what the company needs from you. This is the revenue growth from Bill since I joined, the company was 1 year old, so I started a year before that. But when I joined, we were still just not charging anything. It was free, and then the first release was part of, we start charging $15 per user. The revenue was in the next few years was more than $1 million, more than zero, but it was less than $500,000. So when you put in a graph that goes to $1 billion, it just rounds down to zero, but it was in the hundreds of thousands in FY 29 and FY 2010. And then we reached that milestone of $1 million, past $1 million in 2011 fiscal year. It's one thing that just caveat, it's a little unusual how kind of like we had a steady growth, but it was a in the early days, if you're not growing 500%, you can see in the early days when we go from 1 million to 3 million, it's great, it's 300% growth, but 300% growth of $1 million is not that much. It's just $2 million. Sorry. So you have to be growing in the over 100%. And if you start the company, we were really early in the market, so it was kind of hard to reach SMBs. So for us, our trajectory had a lot to do with building distribution channels, reaching small businesses through channels that small businesses already had. Like their accounting, their accountants, like their accounting software, like their banks. So we spend a lot of time building distribution, which didn't necessarily translate in early revenue, but it translated in long-term sustainable growth, low churn, that we were able to capitalize on top of it. And then as we build more products, we were able to, get that loyal base to adopt additional payments. And that's where we hit the hockey stick growth, where we added additional payments on top of a SaaS subscription product that was based on user fees in the early days and flat fees per payment. And then in the final years, one of the things about going public, we went public in FY 20, FY 19, we were just in that crossing 100 million. One key thing about that is that when you're a public company, then you can use your shares to acquire other companies without having to dip into your cash. So we were able to successfully acquire a couple companies, and GV, especially on the corporate card, is a big part of our revenue growth here. So now back to, there's a little bit about Bill and the growth there. Now back to what I meant for me as a product manager. I joined a company fresh out of business school as a product manager, and over the years, I was able to grow, get promoted to senior product management director, senior director, VP, and SVP. And the key thing about that along the years is that each phase of the company require a different skill set. So I think the key things for me, when you think, it kind of goes back to revenue. The first few years until you reach your first $1 million, you're still trying to prove that you actually have a business. You're talking to customers every day. You are really kind of doing a sales job in addition to a product management job. You're convincing the customers that even though you may not have the product, you have a path to solve their problem. You're listening to them, and you can come back, in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, and say, "Hey, I heard you. Here's what we were able to do." And then and ideally in that phase, when you come back to those customers that are not ready to buy your product, but were giving you feedback that was relevant for you, then you blow their minds. Like you not only solve what they were asking, but you went beyond. The key thing about those early days is that you're not implementing what they're telling you. You are really listening to what they're saying and a couple other customers and saying, okay, this is what the direction that their business is going. This is what they are gonna need, and this is not gonna solve just what they're asking today, but it's gonna solve the next thing. Otherwise, it's just you're just building custom software, right? You come in, do their product, their request. When you come back, they have a list of other things. So when you come back, you have to show them like, oh, here's the direction I'm going. Here's the things I solved and the things I'm planning to solve. And then they're like, if you don't blow their minds in the early days, then either you're trying to sell on the wrong customers, or you're just developing too incremental, right? So that's kind of and you're going to do whatever needed for the company. If the company doesn't have the resources, you're going to be the one doing the training. You're going to be the one doing design. Even back in the days, shouldn't do that, but we actually have to do that. That from 1 million to 10 million, it's so you're able to prove that there is a set of customers that will pay for the business, for the idea that you have. But how repeatable is that? You know, how niche of a customer base did you start with, or were you able to extract a problem that is more horizontal or bigger? So you're trying to prove that that idea can scale. And again, that what the company needs from you in the next 10x from 1 million to 10 million is that you're starting to think about that scale, because you're not only kind of testing new ideas, but for the things that are working, you want to build a platform that is going to be able to not only get to the 10x, but nobody want to stop at 10 million. So that 10 million is going to go to 100 million to a billion. Having that scale in mind while we are very scrappy and testing ideas, it started to be a different mindset. You know, in the early days, it was all about scrappiness. You thinking big. You always knew we wanted to have. Renee always said you wanted to reach millions of businesses, but until you start hitting something repeatable, you're not thinking about scale. Definitely when you cross 10 million and in the road to 100 million, then it's really about how fast can you repeat, how fast can, and what kind of channels are working, and can you scale those channels? Is your channels, and for us, we had the accountant channel, the bank channel, the direct channel, which had small business and mid-market, and we're able to double down the channels that were not working, or pivot things that were showing potential, but it was stuck. So you're going to be a lot more in tune with the business as a product manager. Revenue matters a lot. Once you start getting to 30 days, you can talk about potential, you talk about partnerships, you talk about how this partnership is going to change your growth rate, but you don't necessarily, you still have some time. But once you are generating $10 million in revenue, it's all about how do you get to 100 million. And if you're growing less than 50%, it's going to take forever for you to get to 10 to 100 million. So it's really about how to continue to grow, how to accelerate, and that is about doubling down on what's working while planting the seeds for the next big ideas. Because once you maximize what's working, then your growth rate, like the law of large numbers, and you just keep getting $10 million extra a year. When you are at 10 million, that's 100% growth. But $10 million extra when you are 100 million, that's only 10% growth. So you can't just be stuck on only have one idea that's going to generate a $10 million a year. You have to start planning the next set of things that are going to grow. So that phase is doubling down what's working and then planting the seeds for the next generation of products that are going to help you grow. And a lot of it, the good news about this phase is that you have more and more data. You're not just relying on customer feedback. You're looking at the engagement. You're looking at what they're doing. Back in the days here, we were doing a lot of SQLs ourselves. There wasn't that many tools out there or AI that could summarize the data for you, summarize what was going on. But nowadays, you should be leveraging all those tools and really understanding not only what the customers are telling you, but what is the data telling you. For us, customers were telling us that only 20% of our customers were saying they needed international payments. As a product manager, you don't want to build a feature for the 20%. You want to build a feature for the 80%, right? So we kept punting international payments. It's only 20%, even though the 20% was very vocal and very passionate about it. They wanted to have one place to pay all their domestics and international. So filtering the feedback and prioritizing by frequency, international payments never made it. But when you start running queries and looking at the data, and you identify that you have over $2 billion of volume that's being recorded in your platform for vendors that are outside the US, and your platform doesn't allow them to pay. So they're doing everything in your platform. They're entering, they are approving, they are syncing to the accounting software, but then their recording is paid because they don't allow them to pay. So when you see that information and run some numbers and say, well, what if we build this? How much we can, and ask the customers, would you adopt? And you get a very high response rate. It's like, yeah, I built as my main platform. And you do the math and you realize that that 20% feature could generate 20%, could generate, actually end up generating over 50% of our revenue at some point, because you can monetize in ways you couldn't before. We were monetizing as a per user fee and a flat fee for check and ACH. With international payments, when they're doing cross-border payments and other currencies, then you're monetizing as a percentage. And so just looking at the data, we were able to identify the business opportunity, did a Unix economics, that had a couple people from PayPal that had that knew well about the international payments. When we presented to the board, it was a big business. And 6 months from implementing it, we reached $1 million in revenue faster than any other product before. A customer made $1 million payment, and we made over $1,000 in fees during the beta phase. So that's where it's very important for you to just understand not only the customer feedback, but the business drivers, the business opportunities, and the product management has to be a lot more in tune with balancing, how to grow the business while delivering value to our users. So my understanding of the revenue levers were so much more important. And it was also, when you go public, then you can't, there's no excuses. There's no like, oh, the revenue will be there, or it was just a bad quarter. No, you have to explain in a logical way, and so you have to be pretty predict what's going on. So then you really, product managers are the really important partner for the finance team to know, here's the opportunities in front of us. We can double down. If you give me more resources, I can generate 3 times return. And so it is very important for this phase of the business that you are very in tune with how to grow the business organically with launching new payments like we did, and also inorganically. We look at how long it would take for us to build a corporate card and get into the space and get into credit, and look at opportunities to acquire. Our product management work really closely with corporate development, vetting opportunities. We are always, as a product, have a bias towards building. So we knew about that bias, but we had to balance that, and with speed to market and how the market was changing and how fast it was changing. So the decision to acquire made sense, even though there's cultural changes and all the challenge with technology. It was the right decision, and the closer the PMs can understand that the needs of the business versus how fast the technology can get there, really help us get to that 1 billion. I think there's maybe questions. I want to make sure I can see if there's any questions I can answer before we run out of time.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing, Henrique. Thank you for your talk. We have some questions here. One of them is, you mentioned that in the beginning you basically had customer feedback to make your decisions, and probably right now we have a way more data, behavior data, transactional data, and so on and so forth to make your decisions right now in product. So how this changes through these different phases? How do you leverage customer feedback during these phases, and how do you leverage customer feedback with data through these different phases? So if you can talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, in the early days, you normally don't have a research team. You don't have you maybe be in a lot of the sales calls, so you're gonna be a lot more into and there's not going to be that many customers. So it's all about qual and you being there and understanding. So there's not necessarily a need for, an aggregation of thousands of customer feedback, unless you are in a business like a business that right off the bat gets lots of traffic with millions of users. The B2B is normally not like that. But in the consumer space, you may. So here was a lot more in the early days, a lot more qual and strategy. What is the strategy? As a startup, we were doing AP and AR. We had a full analysis on both, understood the market, customer feedback, and then the board said, well, you have to focus. You can't do both at this size. So even though we were quite a lot of feedback around an opportunity for receivables, we had to double down on payables because we had a differentiation already. So it's a mix of your strategy and the qual. It's really important, and the CO a lot of times very close in those phases. As you start to scale, there's going to be a lot, depending on the business. A lot of the businesses, the sales is going to have a lot of the feedback, and they're losing deals because of X, Y, and Z. How do you not get biased by the really vocal sales reps? So using tools that can really track what was asked. Nowadays we have call recordings for the sales, and all that can be fed into different tools. And then you really can help remove some of the bias. Someone is telling they really need this, you can go look at the sales call, look at the usage of the product if it's an existing user, with products like Full Story or LogRocket. So it's really important to understand how to remove that bias, because you don't want to be building for the vocal customers. You need to be building for that repeatable pattern that it's going to have more customers that you can, get the 10x growth. And then in a large scale that we are right now, tools is everything. There's so much noise. There's so much information. So your customer support, customers are coming to you every day telling you things. And instead of you having to reach out to customers every day, they're already reaching out to you. So you need to be consuming that customer support data, the usage data, the mix panel, and queries, and any instrumentation of all your product. You have to know which flows are not working, where the user are getting stuck. So it's key. That the instrumentation is always important, but in the early days you can afford to be watching over the shoulder, but over time you can't do that anymore. You still add that, you never stop doing the over the shoulder and talking to customers, but you need to have a way to understand the patterns.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Another question here is, do you have a perspective on how the product team or design or the relationship with engineering change through the phases?
Yes, I would say engineering, it shouldn't change, to be honest. It just have the keywords is just scale, and having the right processes that help you deliver things faster without kind of feeling like you are slowing down. But the key in my life at Bill especially was, you have an idea, but the idea may be super hard to implement. And maybe my background in engineering had helped, but it's just that healthy debate with engineering where they're like, okay, I can do, something else, something similar to you're saying, but it's 10x speed. Or no, if you really do what you want, it's going to take longer. So having the ability to, sometimes it's worth doing the way you really need to, that you are asking first, but most of the time there is a line between what you're asking and what engineering can do that is going to get you the time to market, and design is in that conversation. So I think it's because design sometimes may get really feeling like how important it is to look a certain way, but lose track of what are we really trying to accomplish, what is the problem we're trying to solve. So you as a PM has to make sure that we're never losing track of what is the outcome and the problem we're solving, with the best possible design and the best time to market. So I would say that's the key for product management in any size. And you are the one that's going to be helping that conversation. If you don't exist, designers and engineers are barely, I haven't seen them get into a room and agree immediately. You are the glue.
Yeah, perfect. We have two similar questions here. One of them is, what is harder, product market fit or doubling the revenue as you scale? And the second one that is kind of similar is, how did you differentiate or prioritize existing client needs versus going for those business growth areas that you mentioned?
Yeah, great questions. I think product market fit, it's not as it is. I think it's harder to keep growing than product market fit. And the reason for it is that you can find product market fit, but it's a very small opportunity. And even though you have very passionate customers around you, you can't find, or you don't have an economical way to reach the next set of customers similar to those. So that the ability to, and ideally you build a business that you don't depend on paid marketing to grow. Like we build a network that helps a lot of our growth. So there's naturally a network when someone is trying to pay someone, there's a payer and there's a receiver, and the receiver is once you get paid and the pay. So that created a network effect for us. So finding a market fit that has of a big opportunity that you can scale, that big competitors are not easily going to tap into you, because we always been in a space where Intuit is the dominant player, but somehow they let that space open for us for 16 years. Now they are fighting with us, but we are big enough now that we can put a fight back. If they declared they were going to do AP automation 15 years ago, that would be hard for us to got to where we got. So there's also the competition. Like if you go and say, I'm going to kill Intuit, like Xero did when they got into the US, you're just poking the bear, and I haven't seen a company win that way. Normally you say, I'm not competing with them, stay under the radar, then become big. So that's another, it's not in the question, but that's another thing you have to consider is, can you differentiate? Can you be different than your competitors? The other question was, what was the second question?
And the second question is based on, I will read again here, but it's how do you differentiate how you prioritize existing customer needs versus this growth leverage? Yeah,
no, that's the hardest thing. And the reality, I think it's you have to be doing a balance. If you only prioritize the existing customers, then you're going to run out of growth at some point. But if you only prioritize new opportunities, your existing customer base is going to start screaming and your NPS is going to drop. So you have to find a balance. And we kind of had like a 50-50, 60-40, depending on the stage of the company, depending on what you're looking for, but you need to do both.
Yeah, makes sense. In the reality, it's basically a sequence of multiple product market fits, right? So we have PMF with some customers, but we need to find another ones to continue to grow, and how you balance these two things.
Yeah, and try to build on what you have. If you're going after opportunities that have zero synergies with what you have, then you're just spreading yourself thin, and you're just no better than two different startups. You're competing with many instead of. So the nice things is that we kept adding to our capability, international as an addition to domestic, then card payments, and then real-time payments, and now we're strengthening our AR, and then full financial management platform with forecasts. So everything's kind of adding on to a financial management platform, and by having all your money movement history, we are in a very strong place to give you those insights. So it has to be related and add on to it. And you may have to wait for the right time. Like, for example, we knew we wanted to do receivables, but we had to pause, get our AP stronger first before we get into receivables. Eventually, we end up buying a company to accelerate that.
Perfect. We all are almost off time here, but one last question. So we will start your career inside Bill as a product manager. Now you are SVP of Product Management. So what are the skills that you need to develop during this journey that you think it's more important to share here?
Yeah, I think the key thing for me was I was never satisfied like with just doing what I was asked. It's just like, okay, one, I was always making sure that whatever I was doing, I was making sure that it was important for the business. Like I asked my boss multiple times in my career, is this important for the business? What is game changing for the business? And sometimes what was important for the business, I wasn't that, like, for example, I had to focus on APIs and integrations in some point in my career. And I never done that before, and I never thought it was very interesting, but it was what the company needed. So I did it, and I did it really well. It changed, our ability to integrate and the user experience consistency. And then I move on, and then when that was under control, it's like, okay, now I want to focus on the networking. So I was pitching new ideas, but while doing my job. I wasn't pitching new ideas by dropping the balls. So do your job well, what things important for the company, and keep looking for opportunities that it's important for the company, and entices and keeps you engaged. So like over the 16 years, I was always engaged. I was always doing something that I was learning something new that was challenging me. And so you have to be in the driver's seat of your career. Keep pushing, keep asking questions, keep looking for opportunities. So you don't need to jump. Like I didn't need to jump around to grow. I just needed to be, asking what's next, what's needed. If there is enough growth in the company, you can stay in the same company. Otherwise, then you need to jump around.
Perfect. So unfortunately, we need to end right now. And thank you again, Henrique, for sharing all your experience here. I hope to see all of you in the next webinar. So thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.